All right. Thank you to everybody who is joining our event today. Our virtual lunch and learn is about leveling up your composting to fight climate change. So this group, we've got a lot of UVA faculty and staff. Usually we do our sustainability partners lunch and learns. A lot of times we can get together in person. It's been a while since we've done that, but I'm glad to see a great turnout today in virtual form. And I'm really excited about this event because I'll geek out later for sure. A lot of the things we're going to talk about today are things I have always wanted to ask Eric Walter from Black Bear Composting. He's a fantastic community partner. UVA works with his company, Black Bear, on our composting needs, and he's a great community resource for helping divert waste. So I will let Eric say a few words about himself, and we're going to show a few slides today. And I'll encourage you, if you have questions or comments throughout, just drop those in the chat, and we'll try to make sure we have time at the end to tackle everybody's questions. So Eric, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Dana. It's great to be here with everybody today, and awesome that we can do this virtually in light of not being in person. So as Dana mentioned, I am with Black Bear Composting. I have the luxury of giving myself a title, so I named myself the Chief Composting Officer. So you've got to have fun with your titles if you can. So we've been around since 2011, and different composting operations focus on different things. We're focused on food scraps. And so we're focused on food scraps in the Charlottesville greater area, the Central Shenandoah Valley, from Stanton to Harrisonburg. And we provide services for places of work. So grocery stores, schools, offices, restaurants, schools. So public schools, private schools, the university, being a prime example, and homes. So we have a home subscription program as well. And the byproduct of our efforts is that we have a high quality finished compost that local gardeners use, landscapers, and small farms. All right. So I know everybody here has some experience with composting, so I'll probably go a little quickly over some of the basics. But I just wanted to throw out just a reminder that composting is a controlled process, and it's one where microorganisms do the work. We're not adding any sort of starters or any chemicals or treating it in any way by heating it or anything. This is a natural process that happens in nature, where microorganisms take these organic materials and break them down into a humus-like material that's great as a soil amendment. And things that can be composted are food scraps, vegetative or yard waste, food soiled paper, and compostable to-go-ware. And a little rule of thumb, if it grows, it goes, and that includes things like paper, trees, comes from trees, so it grows, so it goes. And when in doubt, keep it out.
Yeah, Eric, I know in working with you, we've talked a lot about how important it is that we only put compostable items into the compost bin. And I think that a lot of that has to do with your process. Would you be willing to share a little bit more about where your facility is and what kind of how mechanized is your process and how much of this is kind of more like by hand?
Sure. Yeah, good point. So most composting operations are sensitive to non-compostable items ending up at the compost bin. It's a process where there isn't a good mechanical way to remove non-compostable items. At the end of the process, items are sized through a screener, and things that are small go through the screen, and that's our finished product. But things that are big might not be contaminants. They might be pieces of paper that just haven't broken down, might be pieces of wood that haven't broken down into a small enough size to get through the screener. So it's really critical that the items that shouldn't be in there, like plastics, metals, especially glass, are kept out of the compost bin. And that really goes for any compost facility in Virginia. There's not a facility in Virginia that has a way of determining what's an inorganic material versus an organic material that should be in the process. So no matter where you're composting, keeping those items out is critical.
Good info. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, good point. So again, I know most of you know why we should compost, but I think that as people who are doing this all the time, that maybe we should remind ourselves why we are doing this. So 27+% of materials going into the waste stream are compostable, with almost an even split of that 27% being between food waste and yard waste. And some people would argue that it's actually higher when you include all the paper that should be in the compost stream, because it is not in the best shape for recycling as paper. So classic example is food soiled pizza boxes, or wet, wrapping, food service paper, or soiled, food soiled paper bags, things of that nature. And then another great reason why to compost is that landfills, where all these materials end up if you don't compost, are the third largest source of man-made methane emissions. And that's a big deal, because methane is 20 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And so if putting all this carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is a big deal, putting methane up there is an even bigger deal. It's a huge way that we can really help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Sorry, just a second. So this helps create a local circular economy. So compost, it's the heaviest part of the waste stream, and so it doesn't go too far. It's too expensive to really truck far or transport far, so it tends to stay local. And in this case, it's staying very local. We're located just north of Waynesboro, and so what other waste do we have, or recyclables do we have that stay within our area? I don't know if there are any. And as a finished byproduct, this is great for improving your soil's health, and composting is one of the top climate solutions. All right, next slide will help illustrate that. So there's a study and a project and a group called Project Drawdown that realized that people had a lot of anxiety about climate change, understandably, and didn't know what to do. And their point was that there's no one thing to do. There are lots of little things to do. And composting is one of those things that seems to be pervasive throughout the framework that they have for reducing carbon emissions. And so it is amazing that, and the whole framework is that, one, you should reduce the sources of greenhouse gases. Two, you should support sinks, and those are places where carbon dioxide in the atmosphere can go. And three is that this should improve society through better health and better education for our communities. And composting happens to hit all three. So in composting, you're reducing waste, and you're managing that better so that you're avoiding those greenhouse gas emissions. And finished compost helps support carbon sinks, and finished compost, because it's part of a local circular economy and used in community gardens and for growing food and getting people together, is something that improves society as well. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, Eric, that is awesome. I love the sort of win-win-win solutions, and that's why composting is so exciting, because it's definitely one of those. I can jump in and talk a little bit about local composting options with Eric peppering in some detail. So one option, if you're interested in an easy composting action, a way to do it, is if you have a backyard, starting a backyard composting pile. Eric will talk about what things you might compost in your backyard versus other methods, which will be really helpful. But backyard composting can be as simple as kind of throwing things in a pile, and if you wait long enough, they'll, a lot of them will break down, right? Another option, if you do not have a yard, but you're interested in sort of DIY, like do-it-yourself composting, using a worm bin and doing vermiculture, which is worm composting, is definitely an option. This is something that was part of my I had a full-time job at a really eco-friendly facility, and part of my job was to maintain our worm bins. So I'm a real nerd for worm composting. It works so well. They are great. They break down our food scraps, paper products, just like really quickly. This can be a good option if you don't have a backyard, but you do have a sort of somewhat temperature controlled, shady area. So great examples are garages or basements are great places where you could have a little worm bin. There's a lot of links on these slides, which we'll send these out afterwards. There's a really great book that's like the Bible for worm composting if you're interested. Then if you are in the area and it sounds more convenient to you, instead of DIY, you have options to collect composting at home and then drop it off somewhere else. So the McIntyre Recycling Center is off McIntyre Road and is a great resource for dropping off recyclables as well as composting in the Black Bear bins that they have there. The Ivy Material Utilization Center is a little further outside of town, but another great drop-off option, especially if you live in the surrounding area. And then a sort of, I don't know how well known this program is, but there's a City of Charlottesville pilot program to make an additional composting location available. I believe it's near the downtown mall. Eric, can you confirm if that's the case?
It is.
Okay,
it's near the downtown mall. Yep, and it's in a secret location.
I was gonna say, it sounds very cool. It's in a top secret spot, and that's because to sign up for this program, you can follow this link here on the slide once we send them out. But basically, you sign up and receive some composting education, and you agree to not put any non-compostable items in the bins, right? But then you have access to a compost location, I believe 24/7, whereas these other locations you have to go during operating hours. So very cool program that the city is doing to try to make compost more accessible. And it's especially convenient if you do live within the city, but yeah, I think definitely any city residents can sign up. So that's a cool new program. But another great option is especially if you generate a lot of composting, you can do a residential pickup. There are multiple sort of size options available, but Eric's business, Black Bear Composting, not only processes the materials at his main facility, but can also help pick them up from your community. So Eric, do you have routes going all through Charlottesville, I bet?
We do.
Yeah.
We do throughout Charlottesville and Albemarle County. Absolutely. And also a couple of routes over in the valley as well.
Oh, awesome. And you can sign up for weekly pickup. Can you talk a little bit about the different sizes that are available?
Sure. So we offer two sizes. We offer a 5-gallon size, which is for people who want to focus just on food scraps, and that gets serviced weekly.
That's like a paint bucket, right? 5 gallons?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So we've got a fancy Gamma seal lid on it, and we provide a compostable liner to help keep the bin clean, and that gets serviced every week. If you have more that you want to compost, such as if you have a yard or there are a lot more things around your house that you want to include, such as compostable serviceware, things of that nature. We have a larger bin, which is a 65-gallon wheeled cart, which is essentially the size of your curbside trash cart, and that gets serviced every other week.
Oh, cool.
So different options.
Cool. So the rates are listed on the site. I imagine some of you might already be taking advantage of this resource, but that's a big part of Eric's business. Oh, it looks like we got some comments about, oh, maybe this is just for me. I'll read it later. Somebody excited about curbside composting. So there's residential and commercial pickup that Eric arranges, and it's a great, super, super convenient option. And then the last thing I wanted to say about this was that composting is really, really integrated into the fabric of UVA's waste management system. So we, of course, have a lot of good recycling options, but composting in recent years has just been growing and growing. So for many years now, UVA dining locations have been good stewards of our waste footprint, and they are composting what we call back of house. So at the very least, the scraps from preparation of food, that all gets composted. But in recent years too, UVA dining has been really committed to compostable wares so that we can do composting front of house as well. So after you pick up your food and you've eaten what you've eaten, let's make sure to get those scraps recycled. And those in the COVID days where we have a lot of to-go orders, they're doing a really fantastic job of switching over the packaging to compostable. And because of that, we've recently added a major composting location near the O Hill dining hall. So if you're on grounds and you have something that you would like to compost, you can bring that over to the tent near O Hill. And then the other compost locations that are available are at the West Range Cafe. There's a compost bin. There's compost bins at the Castle, which is near the McCormick Road. West Range Cafe is near the lawn. The Castle is a dining location near the McCormick Road dormitories. And the Fine Arts Cafe is over near like the architecture school and the art school. So those are great options for once we're a little bit more back on grounds again. And then we've been able to work with some of our Green Workplace program participants to get countertop composting in some kitchens and break rooms. I'm happy to talk to people about expanding that option once it's relevant. And then zero waste events is another big strength at UVA. So if you or anyone you know organizes events, once we're able to do those again, let's make as many of those zero waste as possible by converting to compostable wares and composting all the leftover food. So all these strategies are going to help us get to our big, we've got a 30 by 30 goal is what we're calling it. So UVA is committed to reducing our waste to 30% of 2010 levels by 2030. So if you didn't know, we've got some exciting, bold new goals for sustainability it's our 2030 sustainability plan. And one of those is reducing waste to 30% of 2010 levels, which is actually a 70% reduction of waste. So that's going to be big. And all of these strategies are going to help us get there. So exciting options, whether you are at work or at home. And I'll turn it over to Eric for a bit more detail on what we might compost in these different styles.
Sure. So where you're composting or your compost destination helps determine what you should be putting in the compost bin. So at a commercial facility or through a collection service, just about anything that is compostable can go there. However, if you bring it back to your backyard or a community drop-off, there's some things you want to omit. So such as for all of those options, vegetables, vegetative waste, good to go in terms of food scraps. For meat, if you have meat, you want to keep that out of your backyard pile because it's not that it's not compostable, it's that in a backyard pile, which is it's going to be a little smaller, it's probably going to attract animals before it has a chance to decompose. And the last thing you want are raccoons or other animals digging through your compost pile and making a big mess. So keep the meat out, keep the bones out, keep the protein, fats, things of that nature. Food sold paper, the pizza box is great. The bigger the piece of paper, the longer it's going to take to break down. If that concerns you, you can tear stuff like that up into smaller pieces. If it doesn't bother you, throw it in there. It'll be fine. Same thing with to-go ware that is paper-based, such as the paper clamshell that a lot of businesses have around town. That is fine to be composted. However, some of the same places have compostable plastics, such as a compostable drink cup or compostable serviceware such as utensils, or maybe even a compostable straw. I would just make sure that it actually says that it's compostable. Don't assume it's compostable. I would assume that it's not, unless it says so specifically. And if it is a compostable plastic, I would keep that out of your backyard pile because it's going to take a while. It really depends on some heat and a lot of microbial activity. And again, backyard piles don't get too warm. But I tell you what, if you're interested in seeing how that goes, it's not going to hurt your pile. Those plastics are made out of corn-based resins. So when they break down, there's no plastic residue. So it'll be a fun experiment, but it's going to be kicking around your backyard pile for a while. So in general, leave it out. Yard waste, absolutely put it in your backyard pile. However, a community drop-off is more geared towards food scraps. So they don't want people bringing bags of leaves and things because that will just overwhelm it. And then pet waste. So you don't want to put pet waste in your backyard pile because pet waste often has parasites that will not break down in a backyard pile because your pile, again, isn't large enough and to generate enough heat and microbial activity to sterilize those parasites and pathogens. Same thing with the community drop-off. They're not built for accepting pet waste. However, at a commercial compost facility or through a collection service, pet waste absolutely. In our case, we ask that all pet waste be bagged, for our staff's sake. So bagged in a compostable or bag or a paper bag. But the size of our piles, the process in which they're turned, the heat, the record keeping, we ensure that our piles will sterilize all pet waste. So.
Awesome. So that is a good breakdown of what you can compost in different, sort of styles of composting, but you notice there's a lot of nuances. So what we're going to do is for certain items that can be confusing, we are about to do rapid fire. This is going to be like a game show. If you're ready, Eric, we're going to do rapid fire, compostable or not. This is the part, these are like the questions that I've needed to ask Eric for a long time, and I just saved them all up for this event. And then we'll also ask Eric some of his like pet peeves or like no-nos for composting. Does that sound good?
Yep.
You ready, Eric?
I need a buzzer. Yep.
Oh, a buzzer would be fun. I did not prepare that. Okay. All right. So I'm a nerd and I saved up a bunch of items that I'm not sure whether I should put in the compost bin or not. And Eric is going to rapid fire tell us yes or no, or it could be a maybe, right? If there's some nuance to it. But these are Eric's responses. So this is not necessarily reflective of yes, no in your backyard pile. But if you are doing drop off or curbside collection or something like that, Eric's answers are going to be relevant for you. Okay. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Eric, kicking it off. We're going to talk about some general household items. Number one, I've got a dryer sheet here. Compostable or not?
No. However, they make compostable dryer sheets. So if you look out for them, there are compostable versions of dryer sheets.
Ooh, so if it has the word compostable on it, then it's a yes, but otherwise it's a no.
Correct.
Okay, love it. How about dryer lint?
Yes.
Yes, on dryer lint?
Yep.
Awesome. Can we compost Q-tips?
That particular Q-tip, yes. Paper Q-tips, yes. The ones with plastic shafts, no.
You could tell this one was paper? It's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
He's got an eye. All right. So fully paper Q-tips, yes, compostable. Awesome. How about, can you see this? It's floss.
No. Most flosses are a plastic film.
Good to know. No composting or floss. How about like twine or other string or yarn?
I would say no. Most of the time when fibers such as those items or even clothing, even if it says it's, organic cotton, they're woven so tightly, they won't break down in the composting process. So we're generous and we'll let things go through our composting process twice. But even then, those items won't break down on the compost pile. Even though they're made
I didn't know if this could tangle up your machinery or anything. Is there any concern of that?
It could, but I'm not concerned about it.
Okay, so not so much string or twine.
No.
All right. What about when we have, I don't know if that's what this is, but like a wipe that says it's flushable or biodegradable,
Yeah, I'd say no on wipes for the same reason. Unless it says specifically compostable, don't do it. Like biodegradable is different. Biodegradable means that at some point it will break down into smaller pieces, but it doesn't mean that it will break down during the composting process. And biodegradable also doesn't mean that it will break down into natural elements. It can break down into plastics. Yeah,
good point. I thought I knew about this one, but I wasn't sure, so I wanted to ask. Okay, and then one more sort of general household item. What if I have a piece of fabric? This is like an old towel or something, and the tag says it's 100% cotton. And if it's totally messed up, like I'm done using it as a rag and it's life is over, can I compost it?
No. Again, the cotton is weaved so tightly it won't break down in time. And also a lot of those, even though it's 100% cotton, it has synthetic fiber stitching to kind of keep it together. So even if it were to break down, you'd have residue of non-organic materials that would not break down.
Okay, so good to know. So no old bed sheets, no t-shirts, even if it says 100% cotton, unfortunately a no-go. All right.
Nope.
That ends our, well, here, we'll just move on to the next section. We're getting some good like questions and answers in the chat. Feel free to keep dropping those in there, but we'll try to circle back on some of these to get sort of the official answer from Eric. Okay, the next thing I want to ask you about, this is the category I've dubbed icky stuff. Okay,
Right.
Icky stuff. You ready? How about Kleenex? Kleenexes could be kind of icky.
Yes.
Can we compost?
Yes. So absolutely, Kleenexes you can compost. If you are worried about, if you have a nasty cold and you're worried about those germs, maybe keep it out of your backyard pile, but for a drop off or commercial facility, it's fine.
Okay, cool. What if we had a case where our nose was bleeding?
Well, that's gross. I think that is fine to compost.
Are there sort of safety concerns for your staff, or you guys aren't handling it directly?
We're not handling it directly. So
Right.
So yeah, to be conservative, I would say if there's blood on it, then we probably shouldn't be exposed to it.
Yeah, it might be good to put it in the trash, but yeah, it
Yeah.
would break down, but might be a safety issue. Okay,
Right.
I got it.
You're
Okay, I hear that.
Right.
So nothing
Good
nothing bloody. Like I said, icky stuff. Okay,
Yep.
other icky stuff. My hairbrush gets hair in it. Can I compost hair?
Absolutely.
And pet hair as well?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, you talked about this a little bit, but pet waste,
Yep.
right? You asked that it be bagged up, but it's a yes.
Yes.
We got to make sure our bags have the word
Compostable.
compostable, right?
Exactly. Biodegradable is different. Again, it'll break down into smaller pieces of plastic.
Okay, awesome. I'm glad we found these compostable bags. I can try to drop a link in the chat if anybody has pets and you want to compost your pet waste. Okay, what about, how many people do this when you're cooking and you have something that's like oily or greasy? You might sort of collect your oil or grease so that it doesn't go down the drain. It's important that it not go down the drain. If I could scoop this out, can I just put something really oily or greasy into your compost bins?
Yeah. It's better if it's congealed. If it's hot enough to still be liquidy, then it'll probably burn through,
It might melt your
bag
bag
or whatever.
Good point.
Yeah, or bin.
Okay.
So yeah.
But
Again,
it's not a problem for your process?
Nope.
Cool.
Not a blackberry.
And then this isn't icky, but it's along those same lines, like oily and waxy. What about like a candle or waxy things?
Sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
can be composted.
Yep.
Ooh, fun. Okay, we're doing great. We're about halfway through. Oh, I had one more sort of icky item. When we're vacuuming and we want to empty our vacuum, should we empty that into the compost bin or into the trash?
As long as there's nothing that is not compostable in it. If you just vacuumed up broken glass, no. If you
broken glass.
Paper clips or anything, like if it's just dust and dirt and hair, that sort of thing, yeah, absolutely. Put it in the compost.
Okay. And Eric, you hit on a good point. You didn't mention this, but glass is one of the worst things that can end up in your compost stream. Isn't that right?
Yes, absolutely. Unlike, if a tin can ended up in the compost, that would be impossible for it to fit through our screen. However, a glass bottle could break and will break down into smaller and smaller pieces, which can find their way into the compost.
And you're selling your finished compost to gardeners and stuff, and that would be a huge problem if they were to cut themselves on a piece of glass. So be extra careful with glass, everybody.
Yes, please.
All right, and we move on to our last few categories of items. I've got a lot of papery and woody products that hopefully will be quick yeses or nos. You ready?
Yep.
Papery, yes. Egg carton, or those berry baskets that you get at the farmer's market.
Yep, paper's good. Yep.
Okay, you can also save these and try to return them to a vendor at the farmer's market. I've done a little bit of that. How about a bag that's really greasy? This is my Bodo's bag. It's got deli paper and it's just like a paper bag.
Absolutely.
Okay,
yes.
Awesome. No matter how greasy it is, you can take it. That's awesome. Okay,
yep.
What about parchment paper?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Or like wax paper, is there a difference?
Wax paper, definitely. Some paper is actually like a thin, like plastic spray. And so like what's called a PFAS, I forget what it stands for, polyfluorinated something.
Okay.
But yeah, so maybe I'll change my mind. If it's definitely wax, absolutely.
Okay.
If it is
parchment isn't waxy.
Okay, yeah, then I'd say no.
Okay, I think
I
parchment
mean,
paper is
I'd say,
good. Wax paper is a maybe.
no, I'm sorry. Parchment paper is good. Wax paper is good.
Huh.
Just any sort of paper that is designed to be liquid resistant. You know, sometimes when you go to the meat counter and you get a big juicy steak, they'll wrap it in a piece of paper that does not soak through. It doesn't soak through because it's plastic lined. So that would be
a really good point. One way that I like to test that is if I've got a piece of paper that I'm not sure whether it's plastic lined, I'll try to either tear it and see if I can see plastic kind of stretching, or I'll run it under water and sort of try to mush it up. And if it doesn't break down, then that tells me it's got a plastic lining, but
that's a great tip.
But it sounds like it could still have a plastic lining. I don't know. So when in doubt, throw it out, like we talked about at the beginning. Okay, great.
You got it.
You already mentioned this, but to-go containers that are papery, that don't feel plasticky.
Yep, absolutely.
They're good to go.
Yep.
How about paper plates?
You know, those are good. There might be, if it's a shiny paper, again, there's probably some sort of plastic lining to it. That paper plate specifically, like, it might be just plain paper. But if you're in doubt, like, keep it out.
Yeah, this one's interesting because these are like the cheapest paper plates that you can buy. They're really flimsy. They're not shiny. I think they're maybe good to go.
I would say so, yes.
Awesome. Okay, other papery products. We've got tissue paper. Maybe you got a gift and there was tissue paper in the bag.
Tissue paper is great. Wrapping paper, I'd say no, but most tissue paper is good.
We just want to make sure there's not any tape or anything on it.
Tape or any sort of like sparkles and stuff like that. Plastic.
Okay, good to know. This is a weird type of shredded paper, but shredded paper generally, should we compost that?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
Absolutely.
It's great. It's like already broken down. I guess the one nuance is if you've got really particularly sensitive stuff that you've shredded, you know, you guys aren't a certified, you know, data protect, you know, I don't know. There are like certified paper collectors, but.
Correct. If you need it certified, we're not the people, but I would challenge anyone to.
Okay.
to read anything in our files.
Great. Okay. The last few that I have are woody products that I'm never sure if they're too, I don't know, like a toothpick is very small. Can you compost a toothpick?
Absolutely.
Okay.
A wooden toothpick, yes.
A match is also pretty small. Can we compost matches?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The only hesitation is the match tip, but odds are it's been used and it's been burned. So I'd be fine with that.
Okay. How about a coffee stirrer is a little bit thicker?
A wooden coffee stirrer and the paper, yep, would be good.
Oh, sweet. Okay. How about are chopsticks too thick? Well, of course, without the paper wrapping. But if I have, you know, chopsticks I'm done using, should I compost those?
Absolutely. Throw them in.
Awesome. Okay, that's good news. Last item, corks. Are corks compostable?
One's made from cork and not plastic, yes.
And these are maybe particularly hard to tell, right? It's hard to tell if your cork is a little bit plasticky or if it's fully cork. So again, when in doubt, throw it out. But if you're totally sure, then it can be composted?
Absolutely.
Okay, there's also a cork recycling drop-off. Carpets Plus will take cork if you're in the Charlottesville area, or Wegmans has a little bin where you can drop off cork that they then take over to Carpets Plus, just as a fun tip. All right, I think that was all my items. Let's go check the chat and see if people had other questions. Somebody asked about cat litter. Is that, if it's bagged up, is that okay?
Yes, it is okay with us.
Awesome. How about, oh, this is great. Somebody suggested taking old, you know, sheets and towels and t-shirts to the SPCA instead of to compost. That was good. Somebody asked about receipts. So like small, yes, it's small enough that, I don't know, are receipts compostable?
They are. Just avoid the staples. A lot of times multiple receipts are stapled together. Just keep the staples out. Okay,
cool. Good to know. And then somebody mentioned that you can buy compostable floss. I think I've seen that too. It's maybe made of silk or something, but it's very rare.
That's a good point. Yeah. And now also, like along those lines, K-cups. Most K-cups are not compostable, but they do have compostable versions of those as well. So keep an eye out for compostable versions of things you use every day.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. I think that was most of our questions about specific items. Oh, somebody asked if there's any concern with dryer lint and microplastics, or not really.
You know, I hadn't thought about microplastics being in our dryer lint. No, I would say microplastics more than likely are everywhere.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't
was
feel
thinking
like,
too.
unfortunately, I wouldn't think that exposure to lint would tip the scales and make it worse.
All right.
So
Yeah, good thought. Again, not all of these have clear yes or no answers, but this is awesome to have straight from the source recommendations from Eric. So again, we will send this list out to everybody who attended this event. And these are things that you can, again, like level up your composting. Maybe you weren't composting some of these items and you can start doing so now. Just throw them right in with your food scraps and things. All right, the other thing we wanted to do sort of rapid fire were if you have any no-nos or pet peeves, what things typically cause trouble with your process?
sure. So packaging. So people a lot of times will think, hey, I've got, for example, here's a loaf of bread that went bad, that started to get moldy. Obviously, we should compost this, and we love the bread in the bag, but we do not want the bag. We're not set up to depackage. Currently, there aren't any depackaging places in Virginia. There might be some in the future. So any place where you're composting doesn't have a depackager. So food has to be depackaged.
Very important. Same with what if, like, I think about this, I try to remember with my apples and my bananas, especially if there's any kind of sticker on there, we got to take that sticker off, right?
It would be great to take them off.
Okay.
It's a shame because they make compostable stickers, but they just haven't been, introduced to the market in wide scale yet.
Hopefully one day. If anybody's in the food stickering business, get on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. What are other things that cause trouble?
And something that's a little bit of a pet peeve is in spring and fall, as people are cleaning out their plants and garages, they will take old plants from last year in their plastic pot full of, their potting soil and just put all of that in the compost bin. We'd love to have the potting soil that is left over from last year. We do not want the plastic pot that the plant.
They'll drop the pot in there too. Oh yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Put the pot in the recycle bin. We'll take the topsoil.
Perfect. Okay. Good to remember.
Yeah, and then one of the big things also is and I touched on this earlier, is the difference between biodegradable versus compostable. So there are a lot of items out there where they say this is made from plants or this is biodegradable. Those have different meanings. So there are lots of products that have some plant-based content in them that are not completely compostable. There are some products that are labeled as biodegradable, which biodegradable just means that it will break down at some point in time. There's no time limit. It'll break down into smaller pieces. What those pieces are typically are smaller pieces of plastic. So that doesn't do anybody any good. It's got to say compostable. If in doubt, keep it out. Go to the website, see if they have any sort of certification. There are organizations that certify these things. And those that take the time to get their products certified will proudly proclaim that it's a compostable item and put it on the actual item.
Yeah, that's good to know. It's sort of like when you go to the grocery store and items are labeled as like all natural. It's like that doesn't, right. It's not a regulated term, whereas organic is a regulated term. You're saying the word compostable is regulated, but other words like biodegradable or made from plants don't really mean that much. Is that right?
Exactly. Thank you.
Cool. I gotta be extra clear on, extra sure on these things. And then I have one question. I've always wondered if I have something that's compostable, but I can't fit it into a bag. So I do drop off at McIntyre. If I have something that can't fit in a compostable bag, can I still put it directly into the bin at McIntyre, or do we need to make sure everything is bagged up?
Like give me an example of like something that wouldn't fit in a bag.
Like a big to-go container or something. I have really small bags.
Yes, that is fine. They just want to make sure that people aren't just dumping buckets of raw food that will start to decompose in the bin before it's collected.
Got it. Don't put mucky, gross stuff. Oh, another example is like pumpkins in November.
Yeah.
That's why they do a special pumpkin drop-off spot, right? Instead of just having you toss it right in the bin.
Exactly. And that's another good point. Like one of our pet peeves is that, let's keep this process sanitary. So like we're all avid composters. We want to get the word out that composting is easy to do and something that's good to do. And if we let things decompose in our compost bins while it's waiting for collection or waiting for us to bring it someplace, then we're not doing ourselves a favor, and we're not doing our neighbors a favor by having a rotting, stinking mess and
all gross.
All gross. So if it's going to break down, like bag it, or keep it nice and neat and tidy as much as you can. It should compost it should break down in a compost pile, not your bin.
Got it. Perfect. That's good advice. Okay, well, I think we're ready to move on to our next section. We did have one more question. We got a lot of questions here. We'll try to address them all maybe via email, but one of them was about, again, which items you should throw in and which ones you should not. Somebody asked, how thick can a woody product be before you should throw it away instead of composting it? So for example, I can't put like a 2x4 in the compost bin, can I?
No.
Like what's a good guideline for?
I would say it's got to be for a branch, for example, I'd say it would be a foot or less of that. We're a little forgiving. It can be a little bit thicker, but maybe 2 or 3 inches. We're not going to stop the press. If it's a little bit thicker than that, it'll just take longer to break down. And then composting in general, like the smaller the better. But if it's just a piece of wood, then it'll be okay.
That's a good guideline. Okay, sweet. Well, we have had more to discuss than I expected, so we're running a little low on time. Do you mind if I'll start our slides up again and go through one slide real quick, and then I'll toss it over to you?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So we have gotten it through our rapid fire. We've gotten through our pet peeves or no-nos. Can you guys see the screen again? Okay, perfect. We also wanted to just share some general sort of creative ideas for leveling up your composting. So this one's pretty basic, but maybe you are an avid composter. Try to get other people in your life, especially other people in your household, on board with whatever composting plan you have, right? Whether that's a backyard pile or drop off or curbside, get everyone on board and make sure everybody knows these sort of nuances between the different items, right? This is a favorite sort of hack of mine. I was not that interested in composting when I thought it had to sit out on my counter and it would attract bugs and be smelly. I keep my food scraps in the freezer. So I have a little freezer bin that I just stick my bag in and then put all my stuff in there until I'm ready to take it to the Macintosh, until I'm ready to drop it off, right? So this could be good if you've been kind of meh or you've had troubles with that in the past. I'll also say this is something I do not do, but I know a lot of people who do. If you want to get an extra use out of some of your compostable items, you might consider making a stock, a veggie stock or a chicken stock of bones and skin and stuff. So if you can make some stock, you get that extra usage out of your items, and then you can compost them afterwards. And then I think the last thing on my section is about we encourage everybody to help encourage systems change as well. So you as a customer of local businesses, you do have a voice. So if you're comfortable going into a business and asking if they have compost, that could be a good, it's a small nudge, but enough small nudges could add up to making a real difference in the systems that we're all a part of. And then before I toss it over to Eric, he's going to talk about this idea of closing the loop on composting. The same thing goes for recycling. If we're recycling a lot, but we're not buying items that are made with recycled content, the loop isn't closed because there's there's no demand for that finished product, right? So Eric is going to talk, it's really timely for spring when everybody's getting their gardens going again, about how you can utilize compost, the finished product, to increase your soil health, which is another great climate solution.
Sure. So again, getting back to the Project Drawdown study and efforts, carbon sinks. So all this CO2 is in the atmosphere. It's got to get out. So the way that it's leaving the atmosphere now is through either ocean sinks or land sinks. And land sinks right now are drawing down more carbon than the ocean. And then the rest sits in the atmosphere and is waiting for us to figure out a mechanical way for us to get it out. But before that happens, and even while that happens, because again, it's going to take many different things to remove this from the atmosphere, there's a lot of potential to use land to sink that carbon back in the soil. So healthy soil, it has tremendous potential to do this, and it kind of it snowballs. So you make your soil healthy, it optimizes plant growth. Healthy plants are absorbing carbon dioxide. They're getting bigger. They're absorbing more carbon dioxide. They're using the carbon for growth, and they're storing the extra carbon in the soil. So they've split that into carbon and oxygen, keeping the carbon, releasing the oxygen back for us to breathe. And then as these plants get healthy, they're expanding their root zone, and they're bringing the carbon even deeper into the soil. So good stuff. Next screen, Dana. And one of the amazing things about finished compost is that it's building this healthy soil, so it's full of carbon. So just, in its own state, compost is full of carbon. So we're taking that carbon and putting it directly back in the soil. But the biggest bang for the buck with good finished compost is that it is full of microbial life. So after the decomposers leave the materials during the composting process, the soil food web starts to populate. So we'll see earthworms starting to dig around in our finished compost piles as they're curing. And they're there for a reason. They're there to eat other nematodes and smaller bacteria and beneficial bacteria. Fungi is in there. All sorts of little creatures are in there. It's full of life. Dirt is dead soil. Soil is full of life. So that's another key benefit. So one of the things I'm most excited about that I never really talk about that I need to start talking about is that if you own property, you can, not only are you avoiding greenhouse gases by composting, but you can turn your yard into a carbon sink. And so here's how we can do that. So take your finished compost, and whether it's compost you made yourself, ideally everybody has a compost pile in their backyard and they're making their own compost. But if not, get good quality finished compost, put it in your vegetable beds. It's the best thing you can do for your vegetable beds. Next, you can use finished compost to top dress your lawn every year. Most people do it in the fall, but I know some people who do it in the spring. And top dressing is really just taking 1/4 of an inch of compost and applying it to your lawn. A lot of people will aerate their lawn, and it's a machine that just basically pokes holes in the lawn to kind of break the soil, let the compost and water get closer to the roots. But that's not necessary. You might have better results if you do. But again, just put 1/4 of an inch of compost on your lawn. That'll put carbon directly into your soil, but it will again encourage the grass growth and get that grass pulling more carbon down into the soil. Next, in the fall, it kills me to see people bagging their leaves and then throwing them away. Or bagging your leaves and having them take a truck trip to someplace to make compost when you can just easily mow early and often during the fall. As soon as those leaves start coming down, just mow all the time and get those leaves directly into your lawn. Those leaves are full of carbon. Your lawn needs carbon, your soil needs carbon. Just mow it right there in place. It's so much easier than raking. If you happen to have more leaves, then you should stockpile those for your compost pile. So if you're composting at home, save those extra leaves for your backyard compost piles. You can use them year round. Leaves are pretty good about lasting for a long time. So bag them, put them in a big pile, put them someplace so that you can use them for your compost pile throughout the year. And then lastly, buy good quality finished compost from local producers. We're lucky to have a few local compost producers in our area. keep that circular economy going. So much, you can get so much better compost there than the materials sold in plastic bags, shipped from home, shipped to big box stores, and you get a lot more compost for your dollar too. So it's much cheaper to buy in bulk and to have some delivered or pick some up with a pickup truck than it is to buy individual bags.
Awesome. So Eric, it sounds like people can pick up from Black Bear Composting. Do you guys also deliver in town?
We do. So we have pickup and delivery options.
And you can get what are the amounts of compost that you can pick up or have delivered?
We've got a dump truck that holds up to 8 cubic yards. And then you can pick up, the average pickup holds between 1 to 2 cubic yards.
Okay.
Compost.
Like I have a smallish yard, one cubic yard might be the sort of minimal amount that we do. Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool. There's a link. We'll make sure you have links to Eric's website where he's got info on picking up compost, since this is the time of year to get that worked into your soil, into your do that top dressing on your lawn. But we're basically out of time here. I made a note in the chat that if you have any other questions, please put them in the chat, and I'll get Eric to answer them, and we'll send out email answers to everybody who is here today. So don't be shy. And we just wanted to leave you with a couple of additional resources. Eric, do you want to talk about some of these?
Sure. There's a popular documentary on Netflix called Kiss the Ground. I think it's so good. It's inspirational. Yeah, absolutely. There's a TED Talk that kind of touches upon what we were talking about as well. If you want to geek out on composting in your backyard, I highly recommend the Rodale Book of Composting. So many different ideas and options. Composting can be fun. As a friend of mine said, it's something that you can put as much work into or as little work into. If you want to put a lot and really gear up your system, then that's the book for you. The Project Drawdown organization that I mentioned a few times, there's a link to that. And then Earth Day every day.
Yeah, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, that starting on April 1st, we're going to be celebrating, instead of celebrating Earth Week this year, we are celebrating all month long. So we've been collecting event info. There's over 40 events being organized during the month of April. You can follow this link to see more info on how you can stay up to date on what events are going on. We're also going to be collecting little what we're calling them green neighbor videos. So short videos, if you have something that you are doing that's good for the planet, and you would like to encourage your neighbors, other people in our area to be doing that thing too, we hope that you'll record a little short, instructional or sort of encouraging video. Eric, I might hit you up for a much shorter version of this video. To be able to encourage people to compost more. So check out Earth Day Everyday celebrations. I think with that, we're going to try to leave some time for you to jump to your next, take a breather and jump to your next meeting. So I'm actually going to end the show here and say thank you all for coming. Thank you to Eric for contributing your expertise in a very helpful way and answering all of my burning questions. Again, we'll make sure to answer everyone else's questions as well. We'll try to post this recording to attendees and to folks who weren't able to be here. And yeah, keep up the good work, everybody. We got a lot of composters, and good luck with the leveling up like we talked about today. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.